All right, hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Gonzalez, host of the Bulletproof Workshop powered by AR15.com. Welcome to podcast 002. Today, when I first left the Navy, I struggled to find my own way. When I finally landed in the firearms and tactics instructional field, I recognized it was vastly different from my own experience. So, how could I make my mark in this industry, this new industry to me? Well, I did it by writing a book, and that was the very first book that I published, and then I wrote a second book. My next guest took his own experience and shared them to international fame and stardom. Please welcome to the show Tucker Max, author of the New York Times bestseller, I Hope They Sell Beer in Hell.
Serve, not sell. I just want it
Sorry.
served. I don't want to pay for it. If I'm in hell, I got to pay for beer too?
That's
bullshit.
Welcome to the show,
That's what
Tucker.
makes it hell, I guess.
I guess you're right. So, there you go. It's a double-edged sword in that case. Well, anyhow, thanks for coming on, Tucker.
Of course.
Thanks. I appreciate it. We have a lot to talk about. I'm really excited. It's funny because, obviously before I even knew you, I read the first two installments. Right. I think I got to the third one and something happened.
Were you in the military when you read it?
No, okay. I'd already left. I was still.
So you paid for your book?
I did.
Dude, every military person tells me the story. Oh man, I read your books. I loved them. We passed one of your books around like our entire ship or our entire company, and I'm like, no, so
I can totally believe
I'm
that.
Like, how many people are on your ship? They're like, I think it was like 400. I'm like, y'all couldn't buy 2 or 3 copies? Like, I don't get paid per read, dude. I get paid for sale. And they're like, yeah, but we don't make much money. I'm like, yeah, me neither. Seriously, my books have got to be some of the most. I am one of the most. Even though I sold like 4 million copies, it had to be 20, 30 million people read the books.
Yeah. How does that?
Because the military.
Yeah, exactly. I could easily see that. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. It'd be like, unfortunately, kind of like the porns. The porn mags just get passed around, and your book kind of fell into that kind of category as well. Yep. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And speaking of time, let's go ahead and take a few minutes to thank our sponsors. Daniel Defense advocates for individuals' rights to bear arms, which is why they manufacture 100% American-made, high-quality firearms backed with a lifetime warranty. To learn more, visit DanielDefense.com. All right, so Tucker, I hate to say this, but I don't know a lot about you other than what's public. So let's start with.
I know.
Where'd you grow up?
We met each other.
Yeah, I know.
Neither of us knew anything about each other.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just sweating on each other all day, rubbing around, rolling on the ground together, sweating.
And we know almost nothing about each other.
Right, exactly. Know nothing about each other. And now it's,
So tell me, where did you grow up? Where was home for you?
So grew up in Kentucky.
No shit.
Yeah. Like quasi-rural Kentucky. Left home at 16, went to boarding school in New Jersey, college at University of Chicago, law school at Duke.
Yeah.
And then got fired from being a lawyer within 3 weeks. For real. And I earned it. It wasn't like no one was, I was not being canceled. This I earned, right? And I got super drunk at a firm event and all this sort of stuff. And then like a senior female partner propositioned me.
Whoa.
And I did. It was so beautiful, my stupidity. I turned her down and then told everyone.
Wait. Dude, so you told everybody about how you just denied a senior law partner.
Who's married.
Yes. So you shared the fact that who it was.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It was. I was a special kind of stupid at 25. It was amazing, actually.
Oh my God.
I know. It's like it was actually truly amazing. It was like you almost couldn't design stupidity like that.
I'm like, did you have like some like moral high ground that you were trying to hold?
No.
So you just
dude, I was just an idiot. And I still to this day don't know why I turned her down because it's not like she was hot. She's like whatever. I was 25 at the time. She's probably in her 40s, right?
Okay.
But she
power.
I'd slept with older women. I'd slept with less attractive women.
Yeah, for sure.
There was nothing about her that was beyond the pale for me at the time. Because I was at 25. I was like, man, if you're a woman. And you're willing, and the woman part is negotiable. You just need to be willing. I was putting my dick in, at that stage in my life. That was me.
We all have those dark periods. I guess maybe dark is not the right word for it.
No, dark was not fun. Dysfunctional, yes.
Dysfunctional?
Not dark for me.
Yes. Oh, yeah. God. And I can't wait to get into that part. So you get fired as a lawyer 3 weeks into your first job as a lawyer.
Then I went to work for my dad. He owns restaurants in South Florida.
Oh, nice.
And it took him 6 months to fire me.
So 6 months. Yeah. And apparently blood is not thicker than water.
Not for my dad.
So you're working down in South Florida in a restaurant. As a host, waiter?
No, I was managing.
Oh, you were managing.
Right.
Okay.
Because I had 2 degrees.
Right, so. Exactly. You gotta earn your keep now, man. You gotta pay the piper in some way.
So no, it was pretty funny. This should explain why I was so dumb about the law firm thing. So I get down there and I was definitely one of those dudes who thought in my early mid-20s that facts mattered, being right mattered, that that stuff was the stuff that mattered, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, and so I get down there, and it wasn't one restaurant. He had a whole whatever you want to call it, a whole bevy of restaurants. I forget how many he had at the time, 6 or 10 or 8 and so I managed one, and then the goal was I wanted to help him scale that business, right? Because it was obvious. It was this is 20 something years ago. This is before a bunch of massive national restaurant chains like Cheesecake. They were just starting to really do that, and he had a couple concepts that could have easily done that. And so I was like, let's go. This is amazing. But the problem is, my dad is, imagine Trump, but not quite as smart, for my dad, and not as good with media.
Yeah.
Meaning that everything, he was just a deep narcissist, and everything in his world existed to make him feel good, right?
Gotcha.
And so everyone who worked for him was an ass kissing, narcissist, a sycophant to a
playing
narcissist.
The game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they were also all incompetent and thieves, right? So they were all stealing from him and terrible at their jobs. Now,
Dude.
Me coming in thinking, well, facts matter, right? Okay, well, it's not they weren't even smart enough to hide it. And I'm quickly I realized, okay, these people are both either bad at their jobs or thieves or both. And so I'm okay, cool. Let's just get all these people fired. I'm going to fire all these people. We'll bring in good people. This shit's going to scale fast. I'm going to be rich fast, right? And so I made the mistake of telling those people, well, you're stupid and bad at your job, and I'm going to get you fired. Well, the thing that they're not they had enough self-preservation instinct, and they understood one thing that I did not at the time, that office politics matter more than facts for most people.
Dude.
Yeah. And so for my dad, it came down to, did my dad care more about his ego, or did he care more about his son and building a cool company, a big company?
Yeah.
He cared more about his ego, right?
God.
Now, don't get me wrong. I did more than enough stuff where I gave the idiot thieves, I gave them plenty of things. I give them ammunition, right? I wasn't smart enough to be okay, I got to get rid of them, but I got to be bulletproof before I do. No, dude. I thought because my name was on the door
that you had carte blanche,
that I was bulletproof.
Yeah,
and I was right. So I was objectively correct about the assessment. That was correct, and my name was on the door. I'm what could happen?
Yeah.
Well.
You failed to factor in the name that was above your name.
Yes, and his ego and all that. And so I had the beautiful. It's like anyone who spends their life. To that point, I had spent so much of my life in academia, and I understood academia was a game, right?
Yeah.
So I know so many entrepreneurs now, like Tim or you, who a lot of were really bad at school.
Oh, dude, terrible.
And they're very insecure about it.
I'm not. I fucking sucked at it, dude. It was terrible. That's why I went into the Navy.
Well, but the funny thing is, man, all those people who sucked at school but are now really good at life.
Yeah.
Once I start, I was great at school, dude. I went to I got an academic scholarship to a top 10 law school as a white dude. Right? That's how good I was at school.
You really were the cream of the crop.
But notice how I don't say I was smart.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Because I'm no smarter than you. I just realized early on that school was a game.
Interesting.
And most people believe the lie that school is an objective measurement of ability and intelligence.
Correct.
And it is not.
For sure.
It is a game like everything else is a game.
Yeah.
And there is some correlation to reality, like intelligence, whatever, but very little.
Okay.
And so I learned how to play the school game very well, and I got good at it. And that's why I went to all the top 10 undergrad, top 10 law school, academic scholarships. It's not, I'm smarter than most idiots in the world, but I'm no smarter than all these entrepreneurs I know who are doing great, who did terrible at school.
Yeah.
And once I explained it to them, like, no, dude, you just didn't get the game.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, oh, shit. And then, like, and I'll explain, like, how I did well on papers or how I would, like, it's just the entire game is people in the academic world. If you model their reality and understand, they think this matters, this matters, this matters. Okay, I'm going to give them that.
Yeah.
Then you've just outthought them.
Yeah,
and it's like, you can go as long as you want.
So you basically have to just, in a sense, figure out each professor's, teacher's motivation.
What do they think the right answer is?
Exactly. And then just give it to them.
How do I give it to them in a way that they think is the right answer?
I like it.
Not how do I figure out what the truth is.
Right.
School's not about truth.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now, every now and then you'll have a great professor who will connect school to truth. Those people are stars and amazing.
Absolutely.
And they're like 1% of the professors or teachers.
I would say
maybe less.
I was going to say maybe less. But that's brilliant that you actually figure that out so early. And that seems like that's probably also like one of the themes.
Right. You think I'd be politically smart and understand that? I understood it nowhere else but school. Like, so I get to a law firm and I'm like, I'll do whatever I want.
Fuck that. All those lessons I learned about how to make this shit work. Nah.
Well, you know what? I think I was so dumb. I didn't realize I had, when I was in my 20s, this is true. I didn't realize that school was a game. I just thought I was smart because I was good at school. I think I'd intuitively figured out the game. And I thought, no, I didn't figure out a game. This is proof that I'm smarter and better than everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And
I can see that.
As I got out in the world and I met super successful entrepreneurs or successful at other things who were objectively smarter than me, but terrible at school, I'm like, hold on a minute. I know for a fact this dude's smarter than me. Like, we've interacted, and it's not a judgment on me. It's like the dude just has more brain power, but he did terrible at school.
Interesting.
Like, I can think of 100 examples like that. And I'm like, okay, so it took me years after school to really realize what I had done. And that, like, and also I didn't want to realize that I wasn't brilliant. I just figured out a game. Yeah. I'd much rather think I'm brilliant.
Brilliant. Exactly. Who wouldn't want that?
Being good at school is proof that I'm a genius.
Look at all these degrees. It shows that I'm brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, fuck.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So it took you a while to figure that out, and 2 jobs in the process. Yes. So you get fired from the restaurant job, and you're still in South Florida?
Yeah. Yes, I was for a little while.
Okay.
And so then a buddy of mine, so during the time I was working for my dad, I hated my life. It's not like I liked this job and I was sad I got fired. I hated all of it, but I didn't, here's the hard ass truth. I did not have the courage to, first of all, I wasn't emotionally connected to myself at all. I was a dissociated young dude, and like most guys are at that in their 20s. But also, I didn't have the courage to realize that I had picked a path that I hated.
Ooh,
right? Because it's a high, going to big schools,
dude,
and being a law school, and then these it's all high status.
Yeah,
but I hated it. I hated all of it.
Did you do that because you wanted to go that path, or was that just kind of what was laid in front of you?
It was. I was so good at school.
Yeah.
Right?
Even in high school kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. No, I was like off the charts good.
Nice.
Yeah. This is how good I was at school. This is hilarious. This is such a great story.
Okay.
So I got the chemistry award at my high school.
What?
I'm like a weird autistic almost genius at chemistry. Like I can still quote 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. I can go to molarity and I'm really good at that. I've met truly great chemists, so I'm not quite in that level. I'm on the bench of that team.
Wow.
Right? And so like when I got to undergrad, I took OChem as an elective because like I'd already done it in high school, most of it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh yeah, this will be fun. I liked chemistry.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, I didn't think about this because again, I'm an idiot. OChem is like one of the exclusion courses for med school.
So OChem stands for
organic chemistry.
Organic chemistry.
So to get into med school, you have to do well in OChem.
Okay.
Right? Like that's just a
standard.
Right. And so I went into OChem and I broke the curve in OChem. Like I was like, they grade them on a curve and it's like, it doesn't matter how good you do, it's good relative to the class, which is a total bullshit system.
I think that's also a bullshit too.
Total bullshit system.
That's always,
but that's how it was.
It is. It sucks.
And me and this Asian girl, actually, we were both like really close score-wise. We set the curve. I ended up being responsible for probably like 50 people not going to med school.
Because you fucked the curve so bad.
And I'll never forget one of the study groups. Like a couple of them were in my grade, and they realized I wasn't going to med school, and I wasn't even a chem dude.
You just took it as an elective.
They were so mad at me, and I couldn't understand
how to win friends and influence people, man.
That's how dumb I was at that age.
But how could you know? How could you know that was
if
what was
you
good?
Pay attention to the world around you, you would know.
Okay.
I was so wrapped up in my own shit.
Well, so would you have thrown the grade just to help them?
No, no, fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
I probably wouldn't have taken OChem as an elective.
Oh, I see.
You know?
Okay.
I ended up doing great on it.
Yeah,
like,
sounds like it. Right, exactly. I mean, you fucked 50 people out of med school.
But that's how stupid I was and how unaware of things going on around me, you know?
I like the awareness kind of aspect because that makes a lot of sense. That speaks to a much deeper, like, know that you're being played kind of scenario. Right. You knew that early on.
Well, sort of, intuitively. I didn't really understand the game that much.
You knew there was something there.
Yeah.
You just didn't know the game at that time.
Right, exactly. It's like... I'm sure you know, we know people in jiu-jitsu who are like amazing at way better than us, but can't really teach it.
Yeah.
It's almost like they intuit it. They're learning
totally get it.
They have a physical intelligence. Yep. They don't know how to break it down, break it apart analytically and tell you and me, you know? And so that's kind of how I was at the time.
Interesting.
With what I was good at.
Okay,
right?
I can see that.
Yeah. And so then, but basically, like graded school, got fired from a law firm. So I got fired if you read in the book, there's a whole story about it. I wrote an email to my friends about all the funny shit I was doing at the law firm 2 days before I got fired. And then my friends are assholes and forwarded it to everyone. And so that email is famous. If you were in law school in that period, you read that email. And I got blackballed from basically every law firm in the country. Right, that exactly. So like if I wanted to be...
wasn't even worth the paper it was printed on.
I still went to Duke.
I'm kidding.
But in terms of getting jobs, it was worthless. Like if I was going to stay a lawyer, I was going to have to be like a plaintiff's attorney, like the dude, like you know the heavy hitter, dial 4. I was going to have to be that
I know
dude.
those guys.
And I'm not going to do it.
No.
So anyway, so then went to work for my dad. Dad fired me. And so so the two things I'd kind of trained for a little bit in life, school type stuff, which law is, or business type stuff, I got fired for immediately, as quickly as possible. From the family business, I was fired in 6 months. The family business. And so it was like, all right, but I hated South Florida. And I had no courage to see this. So I was just living a miserable... we all know these people who are like, hate their lives, but refuse to actually accept it and make a change. Yep. That was me in my mid-20s. Totally.
I love it, man.
And I got lucky.
Oh.
In that I got fired from being a lawyer and my dad fired me from the family business were actually the best things that happened to me.
Nice.
Because I wouldn't have had the courage to see those things myself.
So, that was one of the things that I was going to ask you. What do you feel like was a major watershed moment for you? Those two things.
Those are two of the major things. That makes sense. Now, you can make an argument that unconsciously I was reckless in both of those trying to get myself fired. It's probably true, right?
Yeah, of course.
But the reality is I didn't have the courage to see that myself and make that decision consciously.
There's the difference.
I didn't.
I can feel at times how consciously I haven't been able to pick up on things, but there's just that gut feeling, that intuitive that something's not right. I don't know what it is. I don't have the maturity, the intelligence, whatever you want to call it, to actually understand it.
Yeah, but you're still at least identifying something's off. You could, if you had met me at 25, like when I was working for my dad, I would have told you everything was amazing, even though I hated every aspect of it.
You're just telling the lie. Just keep telling and living
doubling
the lie.
Down on the lie.
Yep, absolutely.
The lie I'm telling myself.
Keep telling myself,
it eventually becomes true.
Exactly.
And but the problem is, if I recognize it, everything collapses.
Yes.
But thankfully, my father fired me. Right. Even though he's a total narcissistic asshole for doing it, it was the best possible thing for me. Like he don't get credit though. He didn't do it for the right reasons. He did it for his own fucked up reasons. But
for sure.
And so I was miserable at the time, obviously, and pretty ashamed. Even though I wouldn't admit it to myself, I got fired from being a lawyer in 3 weeks and fired from the family business in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing.
Well,
at some point, you
psychologically, yeah, you're like, okay, what the fuck? Exactly. You start asking questions like, okay, there's a pattern emerging here. Do I look at this? Do I evaluate this pattern? And what's the common denominator? No. Okay, good. Perfect. Because I wouldn't have done that. No. In my 20s, are you fucking everybody else is wrong?
So what I did was I had been writing emails to my only sort of creative outlet that I enjoyed when I was living in South Florida was writing emails to my friends, like funny emails, right? My friends from law school, there was like 9 of us. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. They almost all, except for one, went to Yale for undergrad. And then I went to Chicago. And then the rest were all like state school guys. And they were like the cool, smart, brilliant dudes at their state school. But then you come to law school and I'm like, like everyone's smart. Especially at Duke. Yeah. Everyone's smart.
Yeah.
And so, but like, we joked we were like the law school fraternity because we were like most people in law school are fucking dorks and they were all like most of them were in fraternities and they were like cool dudes but also smart.
Yeah.
And so we all hung out together and we all we played flag football and all this like nonsense. And so when we all went to different cities after school and like we would all stay in email chains. And so they're all like, writing, funny emails about something that happened at their law firm.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I lived in South Florida and worked in a restaurant. So all my stuff was about drinking and hooking up and all that. But I was miserable, right? Because if you live in, especially then, it's not quite as true now. But in 2000, if you lived in South Florida and you didn't do drugs and you didn't like clubs, there was almost
what do you do?
Right, and you weren't an old person, right? You weren't, and I lived in Boca, so I wasn't old or Jewish.
Yeah,
and it was like, well, what? There's nothing. It's a cultural wasteland.
It is.
Like, it's way better now, but it's still not great now. Yeah. But it was horrible 22 years ago,
especially for a guy your age trying to find.
Because I don't do coke, and all the girls do, and I'm like, I mean, I guess I can fuck cokeheads, but this is horrible, right? We don't have a lot in common.
Yeah, for sure.
And anyway, so I would write all these funny emails about it, and so once my dad fired me, one of my friends was like, dude, listen, you're not good at law, not so good at business, but these emails you're writing are the funniest things I've ever read. He's like, you should be a writer. And I'm like, what am I, a bitch? A writer? Like, what? Come on. What kind of fucking loser dork do you think I am? And he's like, well,
let's just be honest.
You got nothing else going for you.
Let's be honest here.
And so I took like the 5 funniest emails, which are like the 5 of the first 10 stories in I Hope There's a Beer in Hell, like that have become classic, iconic, genre creating stories. Sent them like to every publisher and agent in New York I could find an address for. 100% rejection. I mean, like 100%.
Wow.
Most never responded, and then of the ones that did respond, complete rejection.
You need help. Find help.
I still have them. There's 2 or 3 that wrote like most of them, just standard rejection. Thank you for your submission. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
There were a couple that took the time to write personalized rejections about how horrible my shit was and how I should never write anything again, not even an email. No, seriously.
I believe it.
And like it was. I remember at the time though. This is where ignoring reality and being an idiot can help.
For sure.
I remember at the time thinking, okay, like I had no opinion on being a writer, but what was happening is I would send these emails to my friends and then they would forward them to everyone in their circle. And I started getting my own emails forwarded back. You remember email forwards in the beginning of the internet? You're old enough to. I started getting my own emails forwarded back to me from people in other social circles.
That's fucking
hilarious. Who are like it's the most famous one, the first story in the book, the sushi pan story, started as an email. Right.
Love that one.
It was an email. And I got a dude from a buddy from high school forwarded that to me 6 weeks or something after I sent it to my law school. I sent it to just my law school friends.
So that's fucking incredible.
And so I knew for a fact, I'm like, okay, my shit's funny.
Yeah.
Like people don't do it. He didn't know it was me. He forwarded it to me. He's like, you should read this. This is funny. And I'm like, asshole,
are you fucking kidding me?
Scroll down, look at the top header. I wrote that. And then he's like, oh, that makes sense. It sounds like you.
Fuck.
And so I knew my shit was funny.
Right.
And then all the publishing people were like, no, fuck you. You should never write an email. And I'm like, they're wrong.
Yeah.
Which is, it's an irrational perspective.
No, it's not. Okay, maybe it is to the normal person.
Yes.
But I love it. I love it when people tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
When they say, no, you can't do that. You're too small. You're too, you're too old. You're too whatever.
Right.
I had almost a similar experience in the sense that when I left the Navy, I went and interviewed for Department of State, their security, their overseas
DSS.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. A buddy of mine's in DSS.
So And I went out there, hard skills off the chart. Everything was good, but then you have to do some soft skill stuff. And one of the soft skill stuff was writing. Now, I was going to school while I was in California, so I was short of my degree, but I had enough college at that point that I felt like I could articulate a response to this thing. They give you an incident, and you're supposed to write a report from the incident. It's supposed to be less than like 300 words, and you got like 15 minutes to write the report, whatever. Right. So I write something, and I'm like, you know what? I feel like this is actually some of my good work. I feel pretty good about it. Right. Turn it in. Like an hour goes by, I get called into the main guy's office, and he's like, yeah, your hard skills without question, but your soft skills, your writing skills in particular, they need a lot of work. Yeah. So you need to go ahead and maybe get some school. And I'm like third year in English, and I'm like, what the fuck? So when I left the office, I took his business card, I left the office, and I proceeded at that point to start writing my first book. Yeah. And the first book I pulled out of the box, the carton, I shipped it with his business card to him.
Well, that's a little spiteful.
Maybe you might be able to say that, but
I never sent copies of my book to people who told me I shouldn't write again because they just saw my name in the New York Times for 5 years.
That's right. Yeah. So which is more spiteful. I think that's a little bit more spiteful than mine.
I don't know what you're talking about. I see reality very differently now.
Apparently. All right. So all of the publishing houses in New York say fuck you. And you are like, no, this stuff is funny. This needs to get out.
Right. So 2000, I remember the day because it was, I was so wrapped up in my own stuff. I wasn't paying attention to the fact that it was coming up on the 1 year anniversary of 9/11. September 9th, 2002, I put up my website with all my, like a bunch of stories on. I remember thinking, send it to all my friends. And they're like, they were busy mourning, I'm like, oh, right, I forgot about that.
My bad.
Right, my bad. But anyway, so the site went up, and then slowly it kind of took off. And then MTV came and filmed a documentary about me and some other people who were like internet dating. This is back when like the internet was weird and only people in their basements were using it.
Okay.
And so and I had this like pretty well-known site at the time, and then that kind of blew it up. And then the publishers came back to me. And long story short, my Beer in Hell came out in 2006, and no media coverage, no press coverage, nothing. But because I did two things that now everyone realizes are brilliant, and at the time, honestly, I'm not gonna say, I knew that these would work. I just kind of lucked into them. I kind of had to,
for sure.
But I'd had half of the book up for free forever, like all most of the famous stories, not all, but most of them. And then I had an email capture where it's like, I didn't make people give their email to read, but it was like just on the site. It's a very basic site, right? Okay. That had the text and then, hey, put your email in for story. So when my book launched, I had like 100,000 word email list or 100,000 email list, right? Sent it out, sold like, I don't know what it was, 6,000 copies the first week, 3,000 the second week, 2,000 the third week. So I was on the bestseller list for 2 weeks.
Wow.
With no power of nothing except my list. And then, it came off, right? But that was enough. Like I sold the first 20,000 copies basically to people who had been reading my stuff on the internet.
Knew who you were, yeah.
And that was enough to seed it. And then because it was the right thing at the right time, like there's a bit of luck there.
That. Yeah,
and so it went off the list in February of 2006, came back on in May of 2007, and stayed on into 2012.
Damn.
Yeah, I know, right?
Damn.
That one book never left the list, I think. There might have been a week or two, but it basically was on the list nonstop for 5 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
all word of mouth.
I mean, that just speaks, number one, that just speaks to the fact that the book was hilarious.
Yeah.
I can remember reading it and just laughing my ass off. I'd have to put the book down, and just because I'd be belly laughing so hard that I'd have to just like, oh my God, I can't believe he's getting away with this shit. Like, what the fuck? So what was it like being on the New York Times bestselling list? I mean, what did that do for you? Like, personally, but professionally?
So it's like a lot of things. At the beginning, it's like the coolest thing ever, and you think you're king shit on Third Island and all that. And then after a while, you're like, then
okay, back to life.
Right. Like, I'm sure people ask you, what's it like to be a Navy SEAL? It's got to be amazing. And you're like, okay, there's stuff about it that's cool. But at the end of the day, I still got to wipe when I'm done shitting.
But have everything the same.
It's like chop wood, carry water, before and after. It's like, it's better than not in a lot of ways. but it's not the be all end all. You know, it's.
Well, I could see that. I mean, did you feel compelled because of the New York Times bestselling status to write the follow-up, or did you just have it in plan that I was
No, so if I had been really wise, I would have kept consistently writing and put all my books out like in a more consistent manner. What I did instead is I focused on Hollywood and turned my book like I quote won the Hollywood game. Like I went out there in 2007, had a movie made and released by 2009.
Damn.
Like in 2 years.
That's ridiculous.
Right? And I was producer on the movie. I won the game in quotes. The movie didn't do very well for a lot of reasons. Most of them my fault, honestly. But like in Hollywood, getting stuff made is the thing. Yeah. I could have stayed out there and we kept going and this and that. Man, I hated it.
Oh, really?
I hated everything about the entertainment business.
Wow.
Well, dude, all the shit people are realizing now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're all rapists and pedophiles and sociopaths. I'm like, that was obvious then.
No shit.
It's the same. Dude, I didn't take, okay. So there was a short period where me and my writing partner, Niels, who wrote the script with me, Niels Parker, who wrote Matt Best's book.
No
like
shit.
That guy.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So he's a great dude. We had the hottest screenplay in Hollywood. And the Weinsteins really wanted to do this. And I knew women that those dudes had raped, who had like told who had told stories about it, right? Like everyone knew.
Inside of Hollywood, everybody knows, but they don't say anything.
And it's not like I was some deep insider. Man. Like, right. At that point, I was kind of on the fringes trying to get something made.
Yeah.
Everyone knew, and I'm like, and also, you know what's fun? I don't want to act like I'm some hero. I'm not going to take a meeting with a rapist. The real reason I didn't take a meeting with him, that was fucked up. But he screws everyone in business too. It's not just physically screws you or rapes you. He business rapes you too. And I knew a ton of people were like, the horror stories about that dude.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, I'm not going to take a meeting with this motherfucker. And I had a good enough script and we had enough other people. I didn't have to.
Nice.
You know?
That's
like if that had been my
nice.
only option, I don't know what I would have done. I'm not sure. I'm not a dude who takes well to being fucked. So I don't know how much, but I didn't have to. So I was like, all right, cool. So we never took, oh, dude, like he's not the worst out there.
Really?
Oh, dude, it is a land of insane sociopathic predators. And the different ones predate in different ways.
Yeah,
you know, not
sure.
all are rapists or pedophiles or
but
whatever.
Something
dude, almost all of them are going after something in a horrible way. And it's funny, before I got to LA, I thought I was like a soulless narcissist. And I got there, I'm like, oh no.
Dude, I'm an angel out here, man.
I'm like, okay, now that I've met and dealt with, I'm like, man.
I don't feel bad.
Dude.
Did you feel bad at all about putting all of your stories out? Was there any kind of like...
No, putting the story out, I didn't feel bad at all.
Okay, good.
No, there's definitely shit I did in the stories where I'm like, oh, that's fucked up. That's horrible. I should not have done that. Yeah. That is objectively morally wrong.
Bad.
That is unethical. Yeah, of course.
I get it now, but...
Yes, yeah. No, but putting them out was never the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, no, of course not. Like I don't have any shame or complaint. I always joke, like, my parents were just not very good parents, right? No one beat me, no sexual abuse.
Yeah.
All my abuse, all the abuse I endured was relational, like neglect. Like they just didn't
know how to
starve.
Parent. Yeah.
They were emotionally broken. Who gave me everything they had. They didn't have much.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, in a lot of ways, I almost didn't grow up with parents, not literally, but
yeah.
And so, like, a very emotionally bereft childhood, which has been tough to deal with as I got older and matured. But at the time, weirdly, in a way, it was a gift, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Well, I always say my parents gave me two things. A cool name, like Tucker Max is my real name on my birth certificate. Like that's a badass name.
I thought for sure that it was like
everyone think, oh, he made that. No, that's actually my real name. And then they didn't care, but they didn't pretend to care either.
Interesting,
right? And so because like I know tons of people who had parents were way more abusive than mine, way more.
Yeah.
But they also mixed their abuse with a lot of love.
Yeah.
Which is really...
That's so screwed up.
That's really tough because then it's like, how
what do I believe? I want the love and affection, but at the same
but it comes with abuse.
I'm going to endure the abuse because
and
of
so
that.
to them, love and abuse are connected, right?
Yeah.
For me, the only people who really loved me when I was a kid were my godparents.
Nice.
And they didn't abuse me. They were amazing. And so like love and abuse were separate.
Interesting.
And they didn't pretend to care. So I never got the ingrained message that I need to worry about what the adults think of me.
Interesting.
So it was a
that
gift.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah,
it really
absolutely.
was. Because now, one of the number one questions I got, all especially when the books came out, were, what do your parents think? How do you not care? And I'm like, I always be like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks. And I'm older now. That's not true. Like, okay. I really care what my wife thinks.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And people, like, I care what, people in my circle, I care a lot what they think.
Absolutely.
Right? They matter to me,
absolutely.
Right? And as I get closer to people, I'm like, okay, I care, I care what they think, But, like, I don't care what people I don't know think.
100%.
Whereas so many people, like, the idea that what do they, in quotes, undefined they think, dominates their life. It doesn't. It's not even a thing that registers on the radar for me, awesome. Right? But it's because I had abusive parents who didn't pretend to care. So I never got the message that in order to survive, I didn't have to get these people I didn't have to perform for them. They didn't ask me to be who they wanted to be. They just didn't care about me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally.
In a weird way, they abuse me in a good way instead of a shitty way. Good in quotes.
Good in quotes. Yeah. Good in the sense that I guess it could, it kind of gave you a much.
It didn't hamstring me.
It gave you in a sense, kind of like almost like a more mature look on life.
Well, I don't want to call it mature. It's just like mature, they didn't saddle. They could have. My mom could have given me the message that I need to pretend that she cares and she pretends to care, and that I need to recognize, in order to get her love, I need to validate her pretend. She just didn't pretend to care.
I guess looking back at it, there was no mixed messages.
That's
a good thing.
Dude, in a weird way, their neglect set me up to be really successful in a media world that uses shame to control people.
Big time.
Shame as a weapon doesn't work on me with, I don't care what the New York Times thinks. Like, why would I went to school with a lot of those people. Like, I don't literally know, like, Taylor Lorenz and all those people, but I know who they are. Yeah. I went to school, like, they're all fucking broken shitheads. I don't give a fuck what those idiots think.
I couldn't care a lot.
I care way more what you think. I just met your cameraman. Way more. He seems like a nice dude.
Yeah.
I know they're all broken sociopaths. In fact, if they like me, it's a bad sign.
That's like, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Yeah, I did something wrong to get there. Yeah.
Right. It's like, fuck, this horrible person is a big fan of me. What am I?
Yeah, that's a fucking brilliant takeaway, too. It's like, what I really love is that the strength that you got from your parents wasn't a strength at the time.
No.
But it became like a superpower in a sense to like not give a fuck.
Yes.
And then it catapulted you into a cesspool of shit that you were able to just dominate.
Navigate.
Navigate. That's a better way. Yeah. But so you're
if I'd stayed in Hollywood and dominated it, I would have by definition had to become a pretty horrible person.
That's a good point.
There are some really good people in Hollywood. True. There's like Keanu Reeves is a great dude, right? Like there's a couple. Someone was asking me about someone else the other day. But whatever. There's some that are like, but for the most part, like most of the major power players in Hollywood are horrific sociopaths.
Can't stand that. So you survived your depth, your deep dive into Hollywood.
Yeah, the movie didn't do well, which we're honestly another thing.
Yeah,
soul crushing for me at the time.
Really,
truly. Oh, dude, it was so I grew up with very little love, right?
Yeah.
And so, what's a way to? There's a lot of ways to deal with that.
Yeah.
What's one of the ways to deal with that is narcissism, right? Like my dad's same way, and so like anyone who goes out and tries to be famous on purpose is using fame to fill a hole of love.
Absolutely.
Right? And me, the number one example, right? I'm not saying this is what other people do, but not me. No, I was doing that.
That's exactly
that exact thing.
I needed that. Yeah.
Yes. And so like once I realized I could get fame from writing, then I was like, oh yeah, let's go. Right. And I worked on my craft and whatever, and I got good at writing, but writing was a vehicle for me. Like I never wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
I used writing to get what I wanted. Right. Yep. Okay. And for me, that was mainly fame. I didn't care that much about power. I wanted fame. Because fame got me girls.
Ha!
And fame got me money.
Got it.
And then that got me more narcissistic supply.
Feeding it. It's a cycle.
And so it was, man, for a couple years, everything I did worked.
Nice.
Right. And then the movie came, and the movie didn't work, at least in terms of making a bunch of money.
For sure. You had a metric on it that it was supposed to do this.
Right. So box office wise, it was a bomb, like financially. And that for me was extremely soul crushing at the time, right? Because the movie was about my life.
Yeah.
You know, and like I had written the script, and
I mean, you had the book, which was hugely successful. It would make sense that you would think that the movie would be.
They're totally different arts, and if I had picked a better group of people to do the movie, and if I had gotten out of the way, it would have probably done really well. Honestly. So it didn't, I'm not trying to say everything's my fault, but like, I think that movie had the potential to be huge. Yeah. And I think my actions for the most part are the reason it wasn't.
Okay. You know? Taking ownership of shit.
I mean, like I can say the director sucked and he did, but I hired that motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that speaks very highly of you that you have the hindsight to look back and say, yeah, I did it. I made these choices and I got to live with them. They didn't
work.
Yeah. But I mean, now, they didn't work, but the lessons that you learned from them, I imagine, have got to have impacted you in some way.
Well, I'll tell you the big thing, man, is that honestly, this might sound weird. If that movie had done like 50 million at the box office, it might have been the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you, and I know a lot, I bet you do too. I know a lot of dudes like this. You know someone who like had a major victory or win in any field.
Yeah.
Like they're the man in that field. They freeze at that period. And then you can never teach them anything. For most people, they never
I know exactly
change.
What you're talking about,
and they never learn anything else. And not even necessarily they live in the past, but they're stuck emotionally at that level.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
If my movie had blown up, it not even blown up, if it did just 50 million, I would have ended up becoming a mid to lower level Hollywood power player, like an actual power player, not highest level, but enough that I'd have spent the rest of my life in Hollywood or something like it. And no one would have ever been able to tell me anything ever again. It would have locked in my identity at that moment.
Yes.
You know, it's funny with older guys. A lot of times you can tell what their peak was by their wardrobe freezes. You know? And it's, seriously. I saw it with my grandfather. When he died, I looked at his wardrobe and I was like, man, like he peaked in 1972.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and so like I would have peaked and I would have frozen. But instead, it cracked my grandiosity, and it really forced me on a path of looking inward and realizing, all right, like you got a ton of issues, dude.
Yeah.
They're not anyone else's fault.
Right.
Like, other people might have done some fucked up shit.
They had some play in it.
It's not my fault my dad was the way he was.
Yeah.
But it is now my responsibility to deal with my part of that.
So the soul crushing basically was that major watershed moment then at that point. That's what really
the movie failing
shifted
my entire life.
So then
it's why I live in Austin. It's why I'm married. Why I have 4 kids. Why I'm here instead of there.
So you moved from LA straight here. Is that?
I mean, literally.
No shit.
No, dude. Like, I hated LA so much that the last movie obligation I had was like some day in October, and it ended at 8:00 at night, and I had all my stuff in storage, and so I had to wait till 7 in the morning when the storage thing opened up. I was there at 6:45,
waiting,
and like pulled everything.
Get me the fuck out of here!
I was out to the minute I could leave LA, and it was like October. I lived in Chicago for like 7 years, Chicago, New York, LA. And I was going to go back to Chicago. I like Chicago a lot. Yeah. It was kind of my speed. But it was winter. And I'm like, I don't want to spend the winter. Right. So I'm like, okay, what's the city in America that's the opposite of LA but warm? I'll spend the winter there and then go to Chicago in the spring. And I was like, oh, Austin. I love Austin. It's warm and it's the opposite of LA, especially in 2009. That was
perfect.
So drove straight. I don't think I might have stopped. Yeah, I did, because it's like a 20-something hour.
That's a long-ass drive.
Yeah, I think I stopped either in Phoenix or Albuquerque or wherever. But like drove straight to Austin, straight downtown. And this is like 2009, like kind of the crash. I'll never forget this. Like I went to there was 2 nice apartment buildings at the time. It was the Emily and the South Shore, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, went to like the one of them, and then like I'm like, take me to your nicest apartment. And she's like, and I remember she's like, well, it's like, she almost shy. Like, yeah, it's $900 a month, or it's $900. And I was like, that's a lot for weekly. And she's like, weekly? That's monthly. And I started, because I'd come from LA, right?
Yeah.
And I'd lived in New York before that in Chicago.
Oh,
I started laughing at her.
Oh,
and she was like,
girl.
she's like, what's so funny? I'm like, monthly. I thought that was weekly. It didn't occur to me that would be monthly. And so then I'm like, all right, give me whatever it was, like a 5-month lease. And she's like, it'll be $200 more a month. And I'm like, I think I'll make it.
Oh my God.
And so then stayed here. And then spring came and I was in love with Austin. And my dog loved it. Re-upped my lease. And then like re-upped it again. And then met my wife, then girlfriend, but now wife. We've been 10 years together. And my kids are all Texans now, and it's like, why would I go anywhere else?
Love that.
Oh, well, and then COVID hit, and now it's like, well, this is the
definitely
here or Florida. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
Completely agree.
But even pre-COVID, I was
so
here.
Protecting loved ones and neighbors is a high calling. Over the last few years, men and women of all walks of life have chosen to exercise their Second Amendment right as first-time gun owners. Through education and training, families and communities are empowered to protect themselves and those around them. Daniel Defense advocates for individuals' rights to bear arms, which is why they manufacture 100% American-made, high-quality firearms backed with a lifetime warranty. To learn more, visit DanielDefense.com.
You moved to Texas, and you're now in Austin. You met your then girlfriend, now wife, and mother of your children.
Yep.
You kind of, it seemed like to me, you had a big shift in your life. You obviously you took up jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You got involved in...
Well, I actually started jiu-jitsu in L.A.
Yeah, that's
it was a way to deal with my anger at the entertainment business.
Well, that's
truly.
a good way to do it.
It was.
Just sweat it out.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So you started jiu-jitsu in L.A., and that just kind of like followed you here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, I came here, met... so I went to, there was a Helson Gracie here. Did you ever go to that one? Phil Cardella? You weren't here.
No.
Yeah. So a guy named Phil Cardella is a great dude. He has a Helson Gracie school in St. Augustine, Florida now. He started one here, and then Donald Park was there and a bunch of the dudes. Yeah. So, I met all of them there. And then when Phil left to do the Helson in St. Augustine, and then the school kind of disintegrated, Donald took a crew. And then we started, with the Atomic Athlete guys, Jake and Todd, rolled at their place, and then that turned into Gracie Umata, like the big one. Now Paulo's here, and then Tim started training with us, and all that sort of stuff. And so I've been training with them since.
So when did firearms kind of come into your life then?
So I grew up in Kentucky, and my grandmother had a beef cattle ranch, and like my Kentucky side of my family, that's my mom's side, long, old, like. To the extent that American aristocrats exist, like that's what they were.
Nice.
Yeah, like we like straight line, signers of the Constitution, all that nonsense. Like my aunts and uncles are the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, and it's all most of it. It's all these people who are like, well, my cousin was Thomas Jefferson. I'm like, well, you haven't done shit.
What have you done?
Right, seriously,
living in the past.
But, right, and then my family is like one of those that like used to have a ton of money and be really influential, and then they, it's like. Fourth generation now, and they're all shitbirds. And right. And so anyway, but we had a lot of my grandmother still had a lot of land. That was before most of it got sold off, and guns, and so I grew up around guns and shooting and hunting, and that was like part of my life. I wasn't super into it because I didn't have a dad around. My parents were divorced when I was like a year old, and I didn't really like many people on my mom's side of the family. Like they're kind of dysfunctional shitbirds, like all sort of later generation that come from wealth pretty much are.
Yep.
And so like I was like, but I got comfortable with them, whatever. And then got to Texas. First thing I did when I got to, I'm not kidding, wasn't the first thing, but like. Within a month of living here, I got my LTC.
Yeah,
right. Like,
look at that picture. That's an old picture too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I got my LTC immediately, and then bought like a pistol, and it was almost like an Instagram type thing where it's like, doing it. I'm not kidding. I bought I forget what I bought, a Smith & Wesson M&P 9.
Yeah,
and got this. And a holster, like a full leather and like a nice holster, and never carried it one time ever because pre-COVID, it's like I live in America and Texas.
Yeah.
And it's like super safe. Yeah. And also in Texas, like everyone carries. So it's like, dude, like someone will shoot the bad guy.
I don't have to worry about. There's like three other people over here.
Right. They all have guns. They'll deal with it.
Yeah.
And like I was like pro gun.
Yeah.
Like pro hunting. But like, more like, let's be reasonable about this.
Yeah,
like, we don't need machine guns.
Yeah.
And like, I was like very middle of the road about it.
I love hearing that.
And then COVID happened, and now I'm like, I want a tank. I want a javelin missile. Like, I need grenades. Like, dude, I have a fucking arsenal.
What can
like,
I not have?
I have a gun here.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Like, I've gotten very, very serious about self-defense and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I imagine too, having a family is also impacted.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that does wonders for a lot of people when you realize that
I've got to protect someone besides me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're right. Texas, Florida, the best states to live in when it comes to that kind of scenario.
Yep.
So you started this journey, if you will, into firearms training. I know that you're really serious about it because we've gone to the range. And you are a crack shot with that. So,
for a civilian, let's not get crazy.
Well,
I'm okay for a civilian.
Here's the thing I tell people. Like, I try not to put labels. I just look at performance. And I just try to just judge based on performance. Now, somebody might say, well, they should be better because they have a title by their name, whether it be, SF Trooper, Navy SEAL.
I used to think for sure cops were great shots. And then I shot with a bunch of cops. Outshot them. And I'm like, what is going on?
So, that's a whole other podcast.
Know, right?
We could go down that rabbit hole. But the thing that I always try to tell people is that, performance is performance. Yeah. It's like anything on the mats, it's writing, whatever the case might be, performance is performance. So, that was one of the things too that I was like, wow, okay. Because you have a few schools under your belt. But in my experience, that would still kind of indicate on the lower level of the spectrum.
Right.
But you have really kind of taken it and
I have my own range. I practice.
Yeah, exactly.
I shoot.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's like putting time on the mat.
Yeah.
You've got to
totally.
put time out in the training world to get anything, no matter what, performance driven. So you are now, in a sense, like very much pro, not just pro guns, but pro stop infringing on my guns.
I am it's a funny thing, man. I would call myself, I'm not an extremist in many things. I will fully admit to being a pro First and Second Amendment extremist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure we could find a First or Second Amendment point where I would want to stop. I'm not sure what it is. Like, maybe at nuclear arms for the Second Amendment. Like, okay, I think maybe we got an argument there.
The mutually assured destruction thing comes into the equation.
Right. Unless, like, everyone has many nukes, and I don't know. Like,
we need to level the playing field.
Right, exactly.
That's the thing.
Like, so I'm like, hold on.
Well, if the criminals have nukes, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to want a nuke.
Right. And then, like, for both First and Second. And the funny thing is, most people don't really understand the Second. Man, one of the few classes I went to and paid attention to in law school was crim pro police. Like, criminal procedure, like, there's criminal procedure like the law, and there's crim pro like cops, right?
Gotcha.
So, like, and so there's two different ones. And so, like, I paid a lot of attention to that. I know, like, the history of the Second Amendment pretty well. And all he's like, it says militia. I'm like, dude, stop it. The whole point of the Second, clear as day, you can read. There's no art. It would have been so preposterous in, let's say, 1820, when all those dudes were still alive, or enough of them, to argue that the Second Amendment was anything other than a normal person having a gun, both to protect the country and protect themselves from the government. Yeah. That is the point.
Yeah.
Every single founder was clear about this. Yeah. There's other weird French things you can say came into it.
Yeah.
Et cetera, right? And there's definitely a history of racist gun control in the country over the last 100 years. 100%. Which only strengthens the Second Amendment argument. But, dude, I know the history of it, and I know the law. Like, real clearly, shall not be infringed is real simple, and militia does not mean government army.
Yeah.
At all.
That's a big hit. Like, I try, being where I'm at for as long as I've been, I have had more than my fair share of arguments, not debates. These turn into just straight up yelling matches.
It's there because it's identity.
It is.
It's not about facts for people.
So true, and it's also extremely emotionally based.
Yes,
and that's people have a hard time separating emotion from conversation. And
there's no two-way fact arguments. No, there aren't.
It's hard. Well, it's certainly hard for these people. And when I say these people, I should say people that feel very strongly about an opposing view.
Yes.
And I've always tried to be very open.
Yeah.
I feel like my position where I'm at right now is I need to be more of a leader in that position. I need to kind of set the tone and create a pathway for other people to follow, which is, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. I am not naive enough to think that I have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have something that I haven't thought about. So let's have a conversation. Tell me what you're thinking. Give me your thoughts. Give me all this stuff, and let me
Have
make my own
you
decision.
heard an anti to a Second Amendment? I mean that just all encompassing gun control. Have you heard a pro gun control argument at any point in the last even 5 years that either made sense or you were in favor of?
None.
Okay.
Zero.
So you need to keep hearing them?
No, I don't. That's the thing.
Bro, I'm telling you straight up, I am really at the come and take it. No, like I don't argue anymore. I'm like, so you shouldn't have guns. Cool. What are you going to do about that?
Well, here I will take it one step further. Anytime we have a national tragedy that just brings this back up to the surface, the problem that I've got is that anytime you sit there and get in a conversation with somebody, it's an agreement. You are getting into an agreement. They already have their terms that they want you to agree to. Yeah. They want gun control. They want more reasonable, sensible gun laws. Right. That's the problem. You get into that, you're going to have to make a concession one way or another.
No, that's why I don't accept the frame.
Exactly.
I refuse to. No. Okay. My answer is always no.
Yes.
Well, but what? No.
So I am at that point now, very similar to yours, which is if you are going to talk about trying to modify or change the Constitution because that's what you're going. That's where you're going. Well, let me back up. What you're saying is that you want to change the Constitution. Stop pussyfooting around over here trying to tell me that you want this for this. You need to come out and say, we want to change the Constitution. Great. Go for it. So let me see how that works.
What I do, man, is I'll tell you, I say, you want to talk about reducing school shootings? I'm in. Let's talk about that all day.
Yeah.
You want to talk about taking my guns? We're going to have to get in a gunfight. Like an actual gunfight. That's it.
It's going to evolve.
That is the only...
That's the logical progression.
Right.
If you were to be
and good
logical
luck finding, dude, like most of the men who carry guns for the government in this country, I don't think are going to go for that. They're not going to go get other people's guns.
So that's...
Right? So have fun.
Well, the part that I have... Like I've always been like I tell people this all the time. Like, I've traveled all over the world. I've seen Civil War. I've seen what it does. I'm like, listen, you need to listen to what I'm saying. You're going to reach. It's going to reach a crescendo where that's the tipping
point.
Don't
see, but that's the problem. They don't need to listen. I don't care if they listen.
Well, that's true, but
seriously, I don't care.
I believe you, but what I'm trying to get them to see is that you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, you don't. But you're not going to.
Well, maybe.
No. Seriously, think about this, man. If you are alive in America right now, right, and you think. You don't understand that the first thing the Nazis did was round up guns. The first thing the communists did was round up guns. The first thing Pol Pot did,
every tyrant,
round up guns. If you don't get that, right? Because these are not debatable facts. Those are just
100%.
Okay.
That's
if
history.
You don't get the first thing a tyrant must do is disarm the populace that he wants to or she wants to submit.
Yeah.
Then there's no having a discussion with you.
100%.
That's it. It's over, dude. And so my thing to them is like, okay, if you don't get it, cool. You don't have to get it. Not my job to convince you. Just understand that if you want to come take mine, we're gonna have a gunfight.
Yeah.
Like that's it. It is a true come and take it thing for me. I don't. And man, This is all leading, and it's not just about guns. Guns are just one of the flashpoints right now. If it wasn't guns, it would be something else. It'd be COVID.
I mean, the pandemic is a good example.
I don't believe if someone doesn't get that we probably don't have enough shared value to share a living space. You know, like if someone doesn't believe that, they should be in California or New York or one of the or Illinois, one of the states where they think their populace shouldn't have guns. And I'm cool with them living a different way. And if they want to subject themselves to that, that's awesome. I got no problem with that. I live in Texas. That's not going to happen here.
Do you, and I'll do me. That's like been my saving grace. I'm like, listen, if that's what you want, then fine. Go do that.
See, that's the frame to set.
I agree.
You don't want guns? Don't buy them. Go live in a place that has strict gun control laws. It's called Chicago. It's called LA.
Detroit. It's called
LA. New York.
Yeah.
Go live there and reap the consequences of your decisions.
100%.
And I'm cool with the I'll support you. I'll high five you on your way out.
Buy you a plane ticket.
I'm not joking. I have at least some respect for someone who is going to do that because they are at least trying to live with skin in the game.
And that's the problem is that most of the people that have, most of these people that have these ideas have no skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And I think like that's one of the problems that we're seeing.
Power is by its nature hypocrisy, almost always.
Well, that's a good way to look at it too. I mean, the bottom line for a lot of these people is that it doesn't impact them.
Yeah.
It doesn't touch them.
Uh-huh.
Violence doesn't touch them because they have whatever. But violence is all around us.
I mean, Matthew McConaughey going to the White House talking about gun control. The motherfucker has armed security around him all the time. And I'm like, bro,
and
it's a shame. He could have been governor of Texas. That's gone now.
I was just going to say the same thing. That
dude could have seriously been governor. If he'd stood up and said, come and take it, and walked off the podium,
dude,
he would have. He'd have won on write-in.
He would have won. Yeah.
I swear to God, he would.
Well, first, I like how you brought him up because it's a good example of staying in your lane.
Dude,
stay in your lane.
It's not even that. Forget staying in the lane.
Okay.
All these people who are like, oh, he was so persuasive in this. I'm like, he's an actor.
He lies for a living.
No, seriously. There's a reason the two lowest status professions in the Roman Empire, in the Roman world, were the gladiator and actor.
Yeah.
Right? Gladiator being low status was a bit of a hypocrisy. You know why they held actors in low regard? Because they lie for a living and they are good at it, right?
I'm not saying changed.
I'm not saying he's lying.
Yeah,
right. By all accounts, he's like a good dude and whatever. Cool, man. That's fine. But of course, he's going to be persuasive. He's an actor. That's what he's trained to do his whole life.
And so,
is inhabit a role.
Perfect way of saying it.
Yes,
inhabit a role. It's like a shell of sorts. It's not like I didn't have respect for him. I respected him for his trade.
He's a great actor.
Exactly. I have 100%. Like, I'm like, dude, I love you in so many of these movies.
If he decided to play a staunch conservative, he'd win the governorship in Texas.
Absolutely. And the thing that really pissed me off about him and a lot of these other people is that their voice their voice travels.
Yes.
It's like a ripple in a pond.
That has power.
And what bothers me is like, listen to this person. He's not a subject matter expert on this.
No.
He's been given a script and he's reading off of a script.
And he's doing a great job reading.
He does a great job.
Yes.
It's like, you're like,
right.
Grind a tear for him, because he knows how to pull on the heartstrings because he's fucking won wars for it.
Yeah, there's a reason he's won Oscars. He's very good at that.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that you brought him up because that's one of I'm trying to help people see, listen, politicians are the same way. These are not the people that you need to be turning to try to find some sort of moral guidance on the subject. They're not. They're giving you their viewpoint. That's it. Okay, that's it. That's all. All right, so let's get back. So let's talk about, all right, what's in Tucker's future? Are there any more books? You're going to try to do back?
So, well, right now, so I left my company in December. And then I own a ranch in Dripping Springs with my family.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of building that up and not like a commercial ranch, more like, 50 acres.
Yeah.
Right. We have a flock of sheep, some cows, bees,
you're a shepherd.
Chickens. I am actually literally a shepherd. Like not figuratively.
Literally
dude. And sheep are assholes. They are so dumb and brilliant at the same time. They're dumb animals, but they have broken my fences 3 times. So they're crafty as hell.
So they're
dumb and they outsmarted me. But they're legitimately dumb. It's amazing how I don't understand them at all. And then chickens, those motherfuckers will find ways to die. Like actively look for ways to die.
I heard a rumor. Tell me if this is true. If you want a chicken to lay eggs, you need to buy a dozen because 10 of them are going to die. One of them's going to quit, and then you're going to have the one chicken that's going to actually lay eggs.
We bought 6 chicks. They all found ways to kill themselves. So I was like, fuck this.
The idea of how did the chicken get across the road? They didn't. They got ran over.
They got ran over. So we went and bought 8 bigger chicken, the ones that were already mature from somebody and paid. It's like chicks are $5. We paid $25 for layers. I'm like, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I'm getting my ranch set. We'll eventually build a caretaker's house, have someone run that. Honestly, dude, I'm not exactly sure what's next. The next major project is I'm launching sort of my stuff. I get people all the time that ask me, how did you go from that guy to this guy? How did you go from drinker, partier, almost symbol of a certain type of stuff to father of 4, husband, dedicated. We just started a school out in Dripping.
Yes.
So how did you do this? And That's the question I get the most now. And so I like literally starting a whole sort of series of not telling people how to do that, because I hate the idea of giving advice. To me is that type of advice.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it works. Because for me to tell you, well, here's how you need to do this doesn't make sense. What I can do though is tell people what I did, why I did it, how it worked, what didn't work, right? I can do all that sort of stuff. Just like you, like when I was asking you about EDC stuff, you're like, well, okay, it depends. Who are you? What do you need? Like, you don't tell me, here's your EDC. This way.
Exactly.
You're like, no, what do you, how often are you out? When are you out? Where do you go? How do you dress? Because everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
And there's valid different EDCs for different people. Same thing with this stuff. So I just started a whole, I've got a bunch of episodes actually in the can and a bunch of writing in the can. It's going to launch in a couple weeks. It's just me talking about how I went on this journey, right? And what happened and what I did, and that's it, dude. And it's like, we'll see where that goes.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about that is, number one, it's hard to argue with your success, right? Okay. And something that
a lot of people try to.
I'm sure. Dude, I'm sure. I have no doubt.
Try to.
I mean, like I still laugh. Like I reread portions of the book and I just started laughing again about the breathalyzer and just, like that just makes me laugh every time I think about it. But I'm sure people are there trying to pass judgment and tell you how fucked up that was and all that. But the beautiful thing, I think, is that you kind of like it appears to me as though you started on one end of the spectrum and you've now pivoted to the other end of the spectrum. Evolved. That's another way to look at it. And you might not have been able to evolve to this current form had you not started in that form.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And see, that's the beautiful thing about like what I'm trying to do with this podcast is try to talk about like what were lessons learned? What were the failures? How did you overcome those failures? Like I try to end the podcast, not that we're going to end it right now, but I try to always end it like, well, what's your best, like if you were to mentor somebody were to approach you and say, hey, I want to do this, like what's the advice that you would give as a mentor to either a younger Tucker or to somebody else that was seeking you out because they recognize the value that you've recognized the value.
Okay, so that's a great question. The first thing I would do though, man, is like I would turn it back on them. And I would say, what do you want? Right? Because the only thing I can't tell you is what to want.
That's beautiful.
I mean, I can tell you what to want, but then you're just wanting my shit.
Right. Exactly.
If you tell me what you want, it's like with books, right? Yeah. Like, I started a company helps people write and publish books. And people come to me and the first question is, what do you want this book to get you?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you tell, it's like with books as in life, right? I'll use books because it's a perfect metaphor for this question. Imagine there's 10 mountains in front of you, right? Okay. I can tell you how to climb any of those mountains.
Okay.
I can't tell you which one you want to climb. They're all different. There's benefits and detriments to each peak and to the climb and the descent on each, right? None of them are right or wrong.
Right.
They're just different. You tell me the one you want to climb, and I'll tell you the path, right?
Beautiful.
And in fact, I'll tell you one path, maybe not even the only path, but I'll tell you, okay, here's one or two paths up that mountain. They work. There might be others. Same thing with life. Same thing with books, right? Like you tell me what you want this book to get you. I can tell you how to get there. And I can tell you all that sort of stuff. I can't tell you what to want. Some people want to be a New York Times bestseller. Some people want to sell a bunch of copies. Some people don't care about selling copies or fame. They want the book to get them business, right? Okay, whatever. All valid, different. Same thing with that. Tons of people ask me for advice. And I always ask them, what do you want? Right?
Now,
because I can't talk. There's nothing to talk about until I know what you want.
And, I love hearing this because I can feel that really number one, like I see the same thing when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I want to learn how to shoot. I'm like, why? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
That'll dictate what the approach is. But you have kind of like really isolated it down because I think the important part is that most of the time people really don't know what they want.
No.
They have they have
almost
like
never.
This obscure, vague, cloudish.
Almost never.
Exactly. And then you wonder why they're flounder. They wonder why they can't. Like I see this in my son in a sense, like he is floundering to a certain extent because he hasn't been able to pinpoint exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
And he's afraid to I shouldn't say afraid. he's uncertain about, like, if I go for this point, I might miss this point.
Yes, totally. You do, actually.
Exactly. And I'm
Any
like,
choice you make precludes others.
And I try, man, I tell you what, I try to get that across to him, just so that he knows, like, listen, no decision is without risk.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to nail it.
And consequence.
Exactly. You're not going to, like, there's always you can't walk that razor's edge.
You
and
can.
Well,
you can. You're just going to have a life of indecision where nothing actually happens.
Yes.
And you're going to wake up one day. Hopefully, you'll wake up quickly from that and realize I've got to start to make some decisions to get something and figure out if that's the thing I want and then move from there. Because if you don't, you get nothing.
So, like, I've been trying to get across to everybody I come into contact, you want to fail, and you want to fail quickly and fail often.
Yeah.
And then really have
You want to try a lot.
Exactly.
Try often. Fail or success is almost irrelevant. You'll figure that out as you go.
Okay, that's another way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah, because when you say fail often to people, especially people who are afraid of failure, what you're telling them is you have a world of fear coming. Dive in, and if they're afraid,
that's a good point.
That's a tough sell.
I have tried to, like, my approach towards that is trying to help them to become more comfortable with failure, but a better approach is trying to just
more comfortable with trying.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I do with my kids. We don't even talk about success or failure at all. It's not even a concept in the house, right? What we talk about is what did you want? How effective was this?
Nice.
Like, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Did it work for the goal?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like the whole concept of bad and good is in many ways faulty. Right? Because immediately when you say bad and good, you now beneath that are a huge substrate of judgment and shame that all that's built on, right?
So true.
And what I found to be a far more effective way to look at things is effective or not effective.
Okay. I like that too.
Right? They seem like, oh, no, it's not the same.
Totally not.
Bad is judgment. Good is judgment. Effective is looking at reality and it's measuring against what you choose the goal is. That's the thing I like.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Does it get you closer or farther from the goal?
You can look at my shooting we did together.
Yeah.
And there's an angle you can look at it. Like, if I was in SEAL Team 6, you'd be like, that's bad shooting. Right?
Yeah.
Seriously. Right? But if I'm like a civilian who wants to protect my family, that's good shooting.
Yeah.
Right? That's judgmental.
Totally.
What if it's effective or not effective? My shooting's not effective to be an active member of SEAL Team 6, right?
Okay.
It is effective if I'm going to need to put rounds on target to protect my family and get the hell out.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, but people, what's the same there? For kids especially, but I think most of us are just grown-up kids.
Oh, hell yeah.
If I talk about bad and good, my kids tend to shrink. If I talk about effective or not effective, they understand, I'm going to try everything until I find effective.
I love that. That's
and then
actually
go with effective.
That's a brilliant way to approach that with children. Because I mean, we're both fathers. My kids are much older, and I look back at some of the things that I did as a father, and there was a lot of good, bad. They were big into sports. They played sports really hard, and good was measured in how many times you got on base, how many goals you got, whatever the case might be. And I think I failed, or I made some mistakes as a father when I overemphasized those metrics, as opposed to, like, I
started the same way too, dude.
And it's like and it sucks because now my oldest son is in his early 20s, and so it's a different relationship. It's much more. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a better relationship, but it's definitely more rewarding because he's an adult enough to where we can actually have some decent conversations. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm trying to, like, I try to help him to see that, number one, the risk aversion is, I mean, there's obviously, be afraid of a grizzly bear charging you. Be afraid of that.
Yeah,
okay, that's risk.
Right. Fear's okay in its proper place.
Exactly. But don't let that prevent you from exploring and challenging yourself out there.
Let me. You open to a reframe of that?
For sure. Give it to me.
So if I'm a kid and I hear you say don't, you are now pointing the finger at me and you're telling me what to do. Okay. Did you like it when your dad did that to you?
I don't like when anybody does that to me.
And I can tell you my son doesn't like that shit. Right? And I'm big enough and powerful enough, I can
force him to do it.
Right. And what do you think how is he going to react?
Dude, it will not go well. I will tell you from experience that does not go well.
Okay. So You know what I do? And I realize that pretty quickly because my son's just like me and has that streak. And I'm like, okay, this ain't going to work.
I got to be
right. Because I'm like, if someone did this to me, I'd be fucking pissed. Yeah. Right. I'm like, okay. So what I started doing is just asking him, well, what if you did it this way? What would happen?
I like that.
What if you did it? So instead of you need to or you should or you have to, what if?
Yeah.
How about?
Possibilities.
Have you considered? What about this? Yeah. What about this? What if you did it this way? And then I always bring it back to, does that meet your goal? Does that get you where you're trying to get? And then let him figure. So that way, instead of me putting judgment on him, I'm asking him questions that he has to decide what the answer is. Instead of he has to figure out a way to meet my needs.
Right.
I'm helping him meet his own.
I love that.
And even deeper, I'm helping him understand what his own are.
See that I struggled with that as a young person. Like it took me a long time, long time for me. I would like, damn, I wish I could have done that 10, 12, 15 years earlier.
Right.
To figure out exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And not necessarily what I needed, but what I wanted. Like, what did I want out of this? What did I want out of a relationship? What do I want out of my profession? What do I want out of my whatever? And that to me, like literally there's a formula that I use now to try to figure all that out so I can put something in concrete terms so it makes sense. And then as soon as it's concrete.
It's easy to go get.
Exactly. It's easy.
Well, what if you started asking your son the questions that no one taught you, but you had to learn?
Yeah. Those are the lessons that I'm trying to learn now to do. And that's a great point. That
Have you told him that? Your son?
Which one?
What you just said, what you just told me is that I had to learn how to figure out what I wanted first. Have you talked about that with your son?
Not in those exact terms, but I've tried to give it to him like, these are my lessons learned. This is what I've done. This is what I've done wrong.
Hold on.
Give it to me.
If you tell him what to do, here's what I did, here's what you need to do. Okay, right? That's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Have you shared with him how much you struggled?
Yes, in that sense.
At his age, figuring out what you wanted.
Absolutely.
You have told him those stories?
I have said yes. What I've said to him is, and I'm paraphrasing, is that when I was your age, I felt like I was lost. I felt like I didn't know what I wanted. I felt like I didn't have all the answers, and that's okay for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could have formulated a strategy, an idea, a direction, then I would have had purpose, or I would have had some sort of like guide. And that's how I've shared it with him, but I haven't shared it in those exact words that I just used, which I will be reviewing so that I do the next time we have this conversation.
Well, right, because you shared a vulnerable moment with me where you're like, okay, I've had to learn this, I've had to ask myself these questions. I'm just wondering if you helped him ask himself those instead of you telling him what to do. Help him ask himself those questions.
Not exactly, which is why I can't wait to watch this video so that I can actually kind of like jot those things down and have that conversation.
That's the thing. One of the main things I've learned as a parent is like, I can either dump my shit on my kids or I can tell my kids about my struggles and then they can see, oh, shit, daddy has the same, daddy makes mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Daddy does this. Daddy, okay, I can, they learn, daddy can make mistakes. So can I. I can tolerate daddy's mistakes and everything's going to be fine. Yep. I can think for myself too.
I love that.
Because I ask them questions and then I'm like, and even mine are still young, right?
Yeah.
But I've already started to see them start to really evidence thinking for themselves, deciding I like this thing, I don't like this thing, and they're different decisions than I would have made.
Yeah.
You know?
So like that is the moments of I guess success or whatever, however you want to define it, have been those types of moments where you help them to bring it out of themselves.
Yes.
Like you just kind of like our facilitator.
Yes.
You just like, and where did that do for you? Where did that go? How did that?
It's almost like being a therapist.
Exactly.
It's a Socratic dialogue.
Exactly.
Yes. 100%.
Those have been the best conversations that I've had with the kids. Is where I can just and my kids will figure out that I'm doing that, and then they clam up. So I have to kind of like they're like, oh, Dad's doing his Jedi mind trick on us. Damn it, we got to stop it. They kind of, so like I've had to kind of figure out ways to do it, but my point that I was going to make is that the best successes that I've had with my kids have been when I've sat back and just helped them to extrapolate from
That's so hard though, isn't it? Because don't you just want to give them the answer?
They don't want to fucking. They know what you're doing. They're like, oh, I'm not playing this game. I'm going to be.
Mine aren't old enough. Mine haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, well, they've gotten that. But the thing I think that is brilliant, And I, again, looking back, I don't necessarily regrets, but I do wish that I had approached it differently. And I look at you and how you're dealing with your kids right now. And, I feel, first of all, nothing but success for you in that sense. I think that the way that you're approaching that is going to be brilliant, and it's going to have a meaningful, impacting way in your life, in their lives. But I also feel like that is probably a result of your upbringing and what happened, and this is what you want to change for your kids' futures, your kids,
and my own emotional work.
Exactly.
Like I had to do all my work. This is your
repair work as well. That you're repairing yourself by
instead of dumping my shit on my kids, I deal with my shit, and so then they don't have to deal with it. Yeah,
but it's there to also be a teaching point.
Totally.
That they can, they have, and 100%. That's why I like that you mentioned evolving, and I can totally see it as evolving, going from this end of the spectrum to this end of the spectrum, and they have that benefit as a father to see that for you. So
it's hard to be patient, man,
dude,
and it's hard to guide them when it's like if you just would do exactly what I say, you're going to be fine. Do that, but like. That doesn't work. It wouldn't have worked on me. It's not going to work on them.
No.
They're going to have to figure it out.
It's like, let me try to keep doing the same thing that hasn't worked. Let me just keep banging my head against the wall. Man, I've fucking been there so many times. So many. And it's frustrating. So, all the dads out there realize it's, there's no simple solutions.
I'm impressed you were a good dad having kids so young. If I had kids young, it would have been such a disaster. I would have been the legit, there'd be a kid doing a podcast right now talking about his terrible father. Seriously.
So I will say this, like, I was blessed in many ways. I'm so grateful to have these two kids. They're both healthy. They're going to do fine in their own ways. But the thing about it was, when I left the Navy, we found out that my ex-wife was pregnant. We left the Navy, and my interest, and both of our interest, was that we wanted a life for our kids outside of the Navy. Right. Because being in the Navy for as long as I was, you see how hard
Navy
it is.
brats, Army brats.
Well, it's you see how hard it is. Yeah. Exactly, especially in the special operations side of the house. Right. Not that everybody,
because you're never home, right,
dude? Yeah. Ever. I mean, hardly.
How can you be a good dad if you're not home? I don't know how.
You can't. I mean, and I know a lot of team guide fathers that I looked up to, and I was like, damn, they've got it. They figured it out. Right. They're
as good as they can be, not being home.
Exactly.
But that's still lower than being home.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and I always was very, that impacted me. Is like, okay, well, they did it, but like you were saying, they did it like almost on, instead of having 4 wheels, they only had 3.
Yeah.
So it was like,
you can move your car, but it's real hard.
It's hard. So, when we decided that we wanted to have a family that was more stable.
Yeah.
And so when we left the Navy, the job that I originally took did not pan out. And then I was too prideful to consider going back into the Navy because I was like, well, I don't want to admit to making a mistake. And I don't think leaving the Navy was a mistake, but it certainly would have made things easier. Yeah. It would have been more stable. Even though I was gone, there would have been some stability on the financial side, which I always associated with success.
Yeah, of course.
So when things did not, all of a sudden I'm now traveling actually there were years that I traveled more than I was in the Navy, and I'm like, I should have just stayed in the Navy.
What the hell?
I'm just, but I've, it's 20 plus years on this side of the fence, and I'm grateful for all the lessons that I've learned. A lot of those lessons, came with some steep consequences, but they have been very impacting. And I've walked away from all of them. Luckily, I haven't had any that have permanently injured me or scarred me. So that's a success as far as I'm concerned. And it's just, I look at everything now as more of a, how do I accomplish this? What do I do to take this challenge on? Yeah. All right, so let's start to wrap up. Last question that I'm going to ask you. What is the biggest takeaway you want the listeners to learn from your experiences? Biggest takeaway.
All right, so it's not that I want someone to learn, because I don't, someone can learn what they want. This is more, I'll tell you the thing that the realization I've had that's been the most impactful. And it's tough to put it down to one.
Okay.
But if I had to, gun to my head, you got to reduce it to one. I would say metaphorical gun, right? We're all in here strapped.
That's all. Everybody's guns in here are real.
Right. Okay, this is going to sound a little woo and kooky. Okay. Right? And it can get that way, but that's not really how I mean it.
Okay.
The most powerful realization I've had to this point in my life is that I create my own reality. Right? And I mean that very literally. Like what I decide to do, like my decisions, right? That's pretty clear. But also the way I think about my reality is essentially, almost literally, totally created by my thoughts, right? Now, obviously, this table's going to be here whether I think it's real or not. Like, I'm not, that's...
I get it.
Right, okay.
I get what you're saying.
It's one of those things that, like, kind of sounds, well, of course, that's obvious. Once you really start to unpack the implications of that, and you realize, hold on a minute, like, a basic implication of that is every single thing that's happening to me, every piece of my life is because I have either thought that I deserve this, or I want this, or I've accepted it. Right? Like that's one of the implications of the idea that you create your own life and your thoughts create your life. And so it's like, you don't like something in your life, it's because you either accepted it, brought it about, or felt like you deserve it or whatever, right? And it's like, man, once you start to realize that, it's like, first off, it's hard to swallow. For sure. Because like you have a lot of shit in your life you don't like, and it's like, no, it's someone else's fault. It's like, nope. But then also, the next level is almost harder to swallow is like, well, shit, I can have everything I want. Not everything in the world, but I can have everything I want. Holy fuck. Yeah. Now, yeah, there's prices to pay for, like, nothing's free.
That's the thing. But you could have it.
Right. Which is, most people don't think that. And I didn't for a long time.
I can see that in, like self-imposed barriers, self-imposed walls. It's like, we do that almost instinctually to try to protect ourselves or whatever the case might be. But those are also... From failure, from disappointment, from shame, from judgment. But those are all shackles that we have slapped on ourselves versus, society, if you will.
That's one of those ideas that, like, I thought I understood 20 years ago and I didn't understand it all. And then now 10 years ago, like, I'm like, okay, I think I started to get it. And maybe I had 5%. And now I don't know where I am, somewhere 30 to 70% getting it. But wherever, it's like, it's an idea that, it's like with guns, like you can learn all kinds of fancy shit, but if you work the fundamentals over and over and over, you're going to, like, that's by far the better. Same thing with this. This is like one of those realizations that, like, the deeper I go on it, the more profound it gets, and the more I realize, oh fuck, man, like I can, not only can I have everything I want, every time I didn't get what I wanted, in some way, it's probably because I had the wrong thoughts about it, and I had created a situation where this is going to happen. It's like, oh man. And dude, man, I have this, and what's crazy too is, like, I have this, I can actually point you a direct line. It's about 2 years ago I really started to take this idea seriously, and a direct line from that life to this one.
Interesting.
I live on a ranch that is mine I spend almost all day with my wife and 4 kids, doing things I want to do. Like, I have essentially not everything on earth, but I have everything I really could ever want, right? Like I the only thing I don't have in my life that I really want is I want to fly private just because I hate commercial, right? But in about 6 months, I'm going to start.
Good for you.
Yeah. And so it's like, and because I started thinking about this is, okay, how do I get this?
Yeah.
How does this work? And not even this, you can draw the rational lines, like, okay, like, what steps do I take?
Yeah.
It's deeper than that, man. It's how do I think about myself? How do I conceive of myself in the universe and in my world? How do I... what are all the ways this can come forward? And not necessarily, like, the steps that it took for me to go from not flying private to flying private were mainly, there was so much shit. Paying for a jet's not hard. It's getting all the money and needing it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, all the steps that I went through to get there, dude, it's weird. The deeper I go in this idea, the easier things get too. It's almost like I didn't do anything. This sounds so weird, Nary Fairy, man. Like, I know it sounds like this is one of those ideas that's hard to convey in words.
Sure.
Sort of like if you're religious, the religious people I know who are really upstanding and get it, they always say, and I didn't get this until I did psychedelic medicine, they always say God is an experience, not a thought.
Exactly.
Not a fact.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that until about, same with this. Yeah, this is one of those things, once you really start to not just think that you can create your reality, but feel it.
Yeah.
It's weird how the world unlocks, man.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that's, the power of positive thinking, but it's kind of in the same vein.
It's like the next step. Yeah, it is absolutely in that vein.
Like the varsity level.
Yeah.
Varsity level.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Totally.
I love it. Where can people find
TuckerMax.com.
TuckerMax.com. That was pretty easy. Yep. All right. Well, all right, folks. That's a wrap. Thank you, Tucker, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Thanks for all of our support. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to the men and women holding the line. Until then, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, and you're listening to the Bulletproof Workshop Podcast. Take care. Stay safe. Adios.